The Blue Rapids Historical Society has been busy. They've produced some videos that might be of interest to some of you. The first one is called Our Proud Heritage, and it shows Blue Rapids as it was on its 135th birthday with a little bit of history built into it. For those of you that might be technically challenged, we also have this one available on some videotape. This particular video CD was produced also by the Blue Rapids Historical Society with the wonderful assistance of Kenny Regal in Las Vegas. And this one's called Blue Rapids, the Gem City, the Early Years. This one covers the history of Blue Rapids and includes a large number of exciting photographs that perhaps some of you have not seen before. This is a particularly nice gift. This particular video is a commemoration to the Queen Cottonwood, the largest cottonwood tree in Kansas that stood down at the west end of the Fairgrounds Park for many, many years, was lost after being damaged in a windstorm, ultimately had to be taken down and destroyed. This includes a flag burning ceremony. It includes the hot dog roast that people enjoyed when we burned the tree, and what a huge fire it was. These things are just among a few of the items that the Historical Society has for sale. Many things have been made from the old cottonwood tree, including magnets, wall hangers, Christmas tree decorations. They also have for distribution the Blue Rapids Centennial book that was made in 1970, fire starters, many other things of interest for those who are concerned with the history of Blue Rapids.
Blue Rapids began as a dream that became a reality. In the 1850s, a few brave settlers migrated into this area. Names such as the Thompsons, the Goebels, the Palmers, the Henry Miller family, and Andrew and Sarah Scott echo from this period of time. With the construction of the Blue Rapids Community Center, the city clerk's office moved from the northeast corner of Fountain Park to its new location inside the community building. The community center, besides housing the clerk's office, is a gathering place for the community. There are 3 meeting rooms and a kitchen available for rental. The Blue Rapids Police Department is located on the northeast quarter of Fountain Park. The building has been modified over the years, as it was built originally as a bandstand. The Blue Rapids Gymnasium was dedicated in 1955. The first graduating class from Blue Rapids High School was in 1884. In April 2003, the Waterville Parish, St. Monica's, and the Blue Rapids Parish, St. Elizabeth's, merged and became one parish. St. Mark's Episcopal Church is located at 600 Lincoln Street. Early Episcopal church services in Blue Rapids were held at Olmsted Hall over the public library and elsewhere. The building at 600 Lincoln was a former Congregationalist church. Over the years, the congregation has enlarged at St. Mark's Episcopal Church. The United Methodist Church, located on West 4th Street, was constructed in 1876. Prior to that time, church services were held in Colonial Hall. If you need to buy groceries, see Gator at Hometown Foods on the Highway and notice the family atmosphere in the store. Then, while you're there, stop by Subway and give Susie an order for a pizza or deli sandwich. The rural countryside, with its blue sky, green pastures, and rows of wheat dancing in the breeze, is a treasured photographic scene for Kansas. Yet, we know these farms, some remaining in the family for generation after generation, have been a vital part of the economy of Blue Rapids. Therefore, we wish to acknowledge their efforts with our gratitude. The public square has changed since the days of Colonial Hall, the first building on the town site, and the LaBelle House, the first building and hotel constructed on the public square. The jail cells, sitting beside the police department, have a history of their own. They were probably purchased from the old Marshall County Jail after the turn of the last century. Before leaving the public square, take the time to look at the splendid mural paintings. The Blue River, ever-flowing, has for generations guarded and nourished our scenic valley. Before the first white man ventured into the land, eagles, buffalo, and deer lived along the riverside, coexisting with the American Indians native to our area. The Pawnee, Otoe, Shawnee, Wichita, Osage, and Kiowa are among the tribes which may have used the Blue Valley as part of their hunting and fishing grounds. Indian encampments have been reported along the river over the years. One report by Nettie Barlow stated that such a village existed on land which is now Northern Park Street in Blue Rapids. Special incentives, land and subsidies, were offered to railroad companies in exchange for new railroad lines. The Atchison and Pikes Peak line, later renamed the Union Pacific Central Branch Railroad, stretched from Atchison, Kansas to Waterville through Blue Rapids by the final months of 1869. Within a few weeks, the colonists arrived, confident the town would grow to a population of 10,000 people. However, life on the Kansas prairie was far removed from the cultured life to which New Yorkers were accustomed. One example of cultural differences most likely arose during their first few minutes in the community. Their arrival by the Central Branch Railroad in 1870 must have looked as if the train had stopped in the middle of nowhere. In 1870, no depot or porters awaited the weary passengers. C.E. Olmsted, a local businessman, came to the assistance of the community by purchasing a Holly pumping system, a fire protection system developed in Rochester, New York. The first system, however, never arrived. It was destroyed sitting in a railroad depot during the Chicago Fire of 1871. Across the square, a challenge was undertaken by the family partnership of John McPherson, a cabinet maker from Wisconsin, Clarendon Y. Reed, and H.S. Halbert to build a hotel on the town square. Enlisting the talents of two young Scottish carpenters, William and James Allardyce, the 21-room La Belle House, later named the Albion Hotel, soon occupied lots 2, 4, and 6 on the north side of the square. As the community took root around the public square, an obstacle to future economic and industrial growth loomed on the horizon: the flooding of the Blue River. Another pier was constructed in the center of the river, 20 feet high and built on solid bedrock. Then a 6-inch deep trench was cut into the rock in a semicircular fashion between the piers. In the trench, cut stones 20 inches thick and 3 feet wide were placed. Each stone formed a keystone in the structure. The first row, bolted to the bedrock by 1-inch bolts, held the structure in place. Construction on the public square, meanwhile, was going strong. On Lot 21, a private bank was under construction by Freeland and Fairbanks. The original bank was much smaller than today, measuring only 25 by 30 feet. The beginning of the gypsum industry in this area started with J.V. Kuhn and his son, Emir, two Blue Rapids lawyers. J.V. Kuhn, a former resident of Ohio, recognized gypsum in the local rock formations. A sample was sent to be analyzed in Cleveland, Ohio, which confirmed the gypsum to be of fine quality. Tragedy then struck a blow to the factory. After the death of one of the owners, the machinery was moved from the mill to the Buell factory in St. Joseph, Missouri, and the Blue Rapids mill was closed forever. Years of flooding had taken its toll on businesses located along the river. The 1902 flood damaged some of the structures, but the 1903 flood completed the damage begun in previous years. The 1892 classes held at the grade school were an early example of school overcrowding. On the first floor, 2 grades occupied each classroom. The high school crowded into the classrooms upstairs. As uncomfortable as it must have been for the students and teachers, it was not until 1917 that the high school moved to a new location on East Avenue. Farrion Business College began with high hopes as an institution of higher learning in our community. Sadly, that dream fell short of expectations. When Mr. Farr began selling stock in his college, no one suspected his motives. Classes began in the old brick school building and all went well for a time. Then local citizens began to discover that Mr. Farr was in business to enrich his own pockets and not student knowledge. East of town, a ball field had been freshly mowed and laid out for the new club. Nearly every evening the team would be there practicing. However, there was one restriction: no Sunday baseball. Despite loudly voiced objections from local citizens to the Blue Rapids City Council, the local clergy prevailed and they were firm. In September of 1881, a newspaper account stated the Marshall County Agricultural Society held a 5-day Marshall County Fair. Horse races, including trotters with names such as Baby Prince, Lightfoot Sue, Sangaria, and Sleepy Dick, highlighted the event. It also noted the first race of the fair was won by an Oto Indian who could not speak a word of English. As the community came to terms with the horrors of the war to end all wars, another catastrophic event was looming on the horizon: Spanish influenza. Community events were canceled in an effort to avoid spreading the deadly germs. Then, just as quickly as it came, it left the community. The decades that have followed World War I brought more flooding, financial depressions, the Dust Bowl era, and other wars. What greater blessing can come to a weary soul than the elixir of life, the Kansas sun and air, and the breathing space by the acre? John McPherson found those things in his hometown, Blue Rapids.
Growing up in Blue Rapids, Kansas in the late 1960s and early 1970s was truly an idyllic time for me. I have many happy memories from my childhood in City Park, one of which was a Girl Scout camp that lasted several days. During that time, in camp, for some reason, I was drawn to sleep in the giant cottonwood tree my husband and I lovingly refer to as Grandmother Cottonwood.
Cottonwood trees can be prolific cedars. Carried by a Kansas wind, the seed-bearing cotton can travel for miles. Such a seed found its way to a fertile spot close to a bend in the Big Blue River in Marshall County, Kansas in the 1800s.
I'm Betty Bray, and I remember Mom, my husband's mother, Laura Bray, talking about the cottonwood tree right here. When she was a little girl, she played in that, and she was born in 1912.
I'm Maxine Lamb Holler, and I remember the old tree back when I was just a little girl, and my dad played baseball on the town team. On Sunday afternoons, it was a must that we get there early to put our blankets down so we could have shade under the old cottonwood tree, because it was summertime and it was hot. And then later on, when we had 4th of July things, we watched the game, hurried home, got the chores done so we could come back and watch the fireworks. Of course, they weren't like they are today, but they were fun.
Early on the morning of Friday, July 14th, 2006, a main bough split off and fell to the ground. A gaping hole was exposed, and in it was a crude platform propped up by wooden posts. A treehouse, not built on a limb, but in a cavity. This missing section threw the rest of the tree out of balance, and another main bough sagged over the fence separating the arena from the park. One limb kissed an electric power line. Within minutes, the flames were reaching for the sky. The American Legion Color Guard stood by as an official flag-burning ceremony was held against the backdrop of the crackling fire. In the collective memory of the town, the tree was always there, but now it was no more. For posterity, the Blue Rapids Historical Society captured the sights and sounds on their new camcorder, but the apple crisp and our magnificent cottonwood tree are gone.
I'd say there's over 200.
I bet there was too.
I had 3 big boxes.
Say what we learned. I guess we need to do this one. Well, I remember crawling up in where it was hollow and playing in it when I was a kid, but we didn't spend a lot of time there because we figured it was going to fall down on top of us. We were scared. Not very much.
Do you have stories about this tree to tell, Susan?
Do I have stories?
Uh-huh.
No. Just that it was supposed to be the oldest cottonwood or the biggest cottonwood, but I think that was a fairy tale for all those years.
Who did?
Roy Hartloff was saying that he's had some naps in it.
Really?
Wow.
How special grandmother cottonwood tree would become in our lives. We settled down in the 90s and had a chance to spend time in the community. I want to pay tribute to a legacy that is a legacy for Blue Rapids, grandmother cottonwood tree.
The Blue Rapids Historical Society has been busy. They've produced some